So it's 1995. I arrived at the museum, and I knew before I arrived, I accepted the job and didn't come for 6 months because I needed to finish off some projects I was doing. I needed to move. And so I had a chance, and Dave Lawrence was the head of the search committee, and he was also the chairman of the museum's board. And he said, Suzanne, think about how you want to launch the effort. So I knew when I got here that we wanted to do community-wide planning. And so that was one layer of things that we did, and we did that throughout 1995. We met with very many different people in the community, from high school kids who, at the New World School, who had a vision of the museum with columns and a skateboard running through it, to religious leaders, and a great rabbi said you need to have a place that has 20/20 vision. To other people said we need to make sure that this is a place for education and for children. And if you start a collection, it needs to be a collection of very, very high quality. But above all, people really wanted the museum to be in a beautiful waterfront site, in a beautiful building. That was very, very important to everybody we talked to, regardless of their age and regardless of their ethnic background. And we talked to people in Spanish and in Creole and in English. And while that effort was going on, which was very, very public, we ran another effort because the county knew that it wasn't in the business to run art museums. And so with the blessings of the county manager and the mayor's office and the 501c3 board, we spent a whole year sort of dissecting the museum. So at the very end, we were a private 501c3. With county government, we were no longer a department of county government, but we, in fact, the county government was our largest benefactor. And you probably, at that time, the county manager was a man named Joaquin Avino, and Michael Sprague was very much present as the sort of head of the Arts Council. So Michael was there all along. But there was, even though it was hard work, there was will on both sides that we streamlined the organization. And I feel while that was not very glamorous, that it gave the museum a really good backbone to grow on. So we were doing all this public interviewing of people, and we did the privatization at the same time. And that was concluded at the end of, we concluded that at the end of 1995, 1996. So that's where we were. And then we began to look for sites. And we got a grant to kind of hire someone to help work with us on looking at various sites and evaluating it. We needed a certain kind of site, and it needed to be free. The land needed to be free, which was very, very critical to this effort. And we sort of zeroed in on Museum Park. And at that time, the Marlins really wanted to build a new stadium on Museum Park and had an incredible lobbying operation going. And the museum, the Art Museum and the Science Museum both wanted to put their museums on Museum Park. And we joined forces and ran a campaign that was, really a volunteer grassroots campaign with Xerox machines. I mean, it was really, really, this was not a fancy campaign. And, we did not have that level of computer, emails and all those kind of databases. That just didn't exist in, 1999 or thereabouts. There were public charrettes on how this land could best be used. We participated in all those public charrettes. And at this point, we had a really good grassroots group of people who really wanted to make sure that a museum happened. And they showed up. They came to these efforts. And they helped to be part of the planning process for Museum Park. So by 2000, pretty much by 2001, the idea that there would be a museum park was pretty much went through and had the blessings of the city, because the city owned that land. And then it was 2001, and after that horrible incident of the downing of the planes going into the World Trade Center, the city of Miami decided to do a bond initiative, and that one of the things they did was, the initiative was for Homeland Security. And we were able to secure $7 million from that initiative that really would ensure that Museum Park would become Museum Park, and that there was money there to help fix up prepare the land that had brownfill in it. Now, to get to this point, you need to know that we went to many, many public hearings. We went to many meetings with the city, And at the same time, we're really trying to build the museum's collection and build the museum's program, which we did. So after 2000, and then at the same time, we knew as we were going after this land that we also knew that a bond initiative was going to come up and be on the dockets for the public to vote on in 2004. We knew that as we were working on getting the land and campaigning for that with the Science Museum and lots of volunteers, a very energetic board, wonderful board president, wonderful board chairman. We also were working to really put the markers down for the bond initiative. So we were doing a building program. We were figuring out what it would cost to build a new art museum. And so that and we knew the minute that we sort of knew we had the site and the site was sort of like confirmed, that strengthened all the planning we'd done for the building. And so we had that, we had all the paperwork for that done. The amount of money that we asked for in the bond initiative was $100 million. And I think we had very, very good figures to show that we couldn't do anything really well for less than $100 million. And that if we could say it was going to come in for 80, but it would not. So those were what we called the Girl Scout numbers. Those were the numbers that weren't going to, they were very solid numbers. And we had very good information to back those numbers up.